Welcome in, episode 103, What's Right with Nick Wright. I am fresh off a plane from Vegas, landed this morning, and I know many of you watch this show because you like me, you appreciate me, you love DeMonze, but some of you watch or listen despite me. Not to spite me, but despite me. Meaning, you maybe you like me, maybe you don't, but what you really like is when I'm in pain. So I'm going to give you a little present today, before we even get into what happened in the Chiefs game. I'm just going to set the template for you. Got to Vegas, middle of the night, Thursday night, Friday morning. Played in one of the bigger poker games I've ever played in my life on Friday. Put it on Instagram. Won a great deal of money. Was feeling great about it. Saturday, played in that game that had somehow gotten even bigger. Overnight, lost a little bit, was still way ahead. Sunday then rolls around. I'm in Las Vegas, remember? And I do believe I told you guys that the Chiefs-Bengals game was my game of the year. Loved it more than any game on the board all season. I also gave you guys 6 picks, including the Prince that was promised, including the Falcons, including the Colts, plus 10.5, too many points. Colts trying to tie the game up going into the fourth quarter. They get outscored 33-0 in the fourth quarter. To which I tell you, after the morning slate didn't go great, I wasn't going to be in the casino for the 4 p.m. Eastern games because I was actually invited to the home of Doyle Brunson, poker legend, Texas Dolly, had me into his home to watch these games. So I broke all my gambling rules, DeMonze. Took all that poker profit, everything we had for the weekend, and said, you know what? This is going to be a great day in my life. I'm gonna win maybe my biggest sports bet ever, alongside the biggest poker legend ever in his own home, Doyle Brunson. And we got Chiefs -2. And then the game started, and you know what the best bets all year have been? Live Chiefs bets when they fall down big. So, they're down 14-3. And I check, they're getting 3.5. Chiefs plus 3.5. And I'm like, okay, my -2 is not looking great, but I can get the Chiefs plus 3.5 right now. And I had a lot of money in that online account from that parlay from a few weeks ago. So I log in. Not able to use it because I'm not in New York State. I'm in Vegas. So I couldn't place the bet. And the plus 3.5 would have hit.
Yeah.
They lost by 3. So I am up. I am upbeat. It was a fun weekend. Saw Gucci Mane live in concert. Got to hang out with Doyle Brunson. Played in a great poker game. With all that said, your little sister's school tuition, monthly school tuition, gets auto-withdrawn on the 5th of each month. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't check the old account this morning and figure out if I wasn't going to have to do a fringe transfer from DeMonze's account to mine to cover the tuition before I could replace it, hopefully without him knowing. I did that once upon a time by accident, and then I realized, I was like, in an odd way, DeMonze's account is like my backstop if things ever go really poorly. So that was my weekend. We'll get into all the games here. First, let's talk about what missed the cut. Here's what is not on today's show. College football playoff set, and they got it right. Listen, I wanted USC to be in there at 4, and I would have argued strongly that USC should not be penalized for losing a conference championship game, and Ohio State, which didn't make their conference championship game, getting in. However, because USC ended up getting dog-walked at the end by Utah, that game was in Vegas, by the way, I can't argue it. TCU deserved to stay at 3. The playoff committee got it right. Oddly, this would have been a year where we just needed the old BCS system. 1 versus 2. Georgia and Michigan have nothing to prove but to play each other. They're the only undefeated teams. Don't worry about it. Browns win. Deshaun Watson looks like a guy who hasn't played in 2 years. We'll continue to monitor that story. And Deion Sanders, I went to Mississippi or Memphis this year to watch Deion coach in the Heritage Classic, if you remember. Yeah. Deion going to Colorado. We might have a guest appearance by my wife, DeMonze's mom, on Thursday to briefly give a take on Deion leaving Jackson, Mississippi, where Danielle lived for a little bit, because she has, I think, the best take of anyone I've heard on it. None of that is on the show today, though. We're going to start with, and by the way, stop by in the chat, ask some questions. We'll get to them later in the show. Reminder, we wrap up book club on Thursday for this book, Little History of the World by E.H. Gombrich. We'll do that on Thursday. Today, all right, let's get to it. Chiefs Bengals, go ahead.
All right, I'm sorry you went all the way to Vegas to see USA, the Jags, and last but not least, your Chiefs lose.
Yeah, the USA is the only one I didn't lose money on. Yeah. I thought the Netherlands would win, but the Chiefs, well, I lost money on the others. Go ahead.
The Chiefs have 5 losses in 2022, and 3 of them are to the Bengals.
That's an odd way to put it, but it is accurate. You mean the calendar year 2022. They've lost 3 times to the Bengals, once to the Bills, once to the Colts. That's right. Go ahead.
Joe Burrow obviously remains undefeated versus Patrick Mahomes in his career.
Yep.
Casey had a shot late, but ended up being the only favorite to lose in Week 13.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that till I saw that in today's rundown. The only favorite to lose. Almost as crazy as I think I went 1-5 on my picks this week. Go ahead.
And the Bills are now the 1 seed.
Don't care.
Yep. Are the Bengals the best team in the AFC? And can Mahomes be considered the MVP if Joe Burrow keeps beating him and playing like this?
Okay, so much here. First, before I answer your questions, my apologies I will answer them, but I want to talk about the game itself. The right team won yesterday. Now, could the Chiefs have won? Absolutely. Travis Kelce doesn't fumble. He fumbles. They're driving to go up 2 scores, put the game away. Am I beside myself? Was I in real time beside myself with the decision to kick that field goal? Which, first of all, far from a sure thing you're going to make it, as evidenced by the fact that he missed it. Also, it's a 55-yarder. Butker is an excellent kicker, but in his career, he's like 70% from 55 yards. But most damningly, it takes the ball out of Mahomes' hands, and even if you make it, you still need your defense to stop Cincinnati, which you hadn't been able to do throughout the game. So I understand the Chiefs had many opportunities, but so did Cincinnati. Cincinnati dropped a touchdown pass, just a perfect pass dropped, and the Chiefs got a goal line stand with a great play by Dunlap that took, at least maybe 7 points off the board. So the game was close. It's a coin flip game. I think the right team won. I want to give Cincinnati credit. That's first of all. Second of all, what is most disappointing to me, other than taking the ball out of Mahomes' hands on that 4th down, which flatly should never happen, Andy Reid. You trusted him to go for the 4th down earlier in the game at the goal line. He supermaned it and got into the end zone. Leave the ball in his hands there. What frustrated me so much was the Chiefs' defense did not show up in a huge spot. After talking trash, the Chiefs' defense, the way to slow down Cincinnati is to beat the hell out of Burrow. And they got 2 sacks on the day. One of them Burrow kind of gave them on that odd 2nd down play call, which was a very odd decision by Zach Taylor late in the game with 2:04 left that gave the Chiefs an opening. And after all that, they're in a 3rd and 11 with 2 minutes left, no timeouts. Cincinnati's up 3. If you stop them, you are getting the ball back, maybe with 1:50 left if it's an incompletion, with 1:15 left if it's a completion short of the 1st down or a sack, with a chance to go win, and you couldn't get off the field. So, credit to the Bengals. That's first of all. Second of all, the Chiefs now have a rival in the AFC. Everyone has tried to say it's the Bills. It is not. It is the Bengals. And I know some folks, if you want to be a smartass, will say it's not a rivalry. Chiefs have never beaten them. Okay. I think all of us recognize how close these games have been. Yes, the Bengals have gotten the upper hand in it, and the Bengals deserve bragging rights. See, I am not afraid to give teams credit. I just don't like premature credit being demanded. And the national media, and Bills fans demanded that I give the Bills credit and Josh Allen credit for things he has not yet done. Joe Burrow has done them. Joe Burrow has stared Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs down 3 times in his career and beat them all 3. First team to ever beat them 3 in a row. The only quarterback to have 3 wins against Mahomes. The other one is Tom Brady. I give the guy credit. And Joe Burrow, I know it's cliche at this point, call him Joe Cool. The guy's bleeping cool. Like, not just in how he carries himself off the field, but he was under pressure throughout the night. They weren't getting the sacks, but they were getting pressure. And he's calm in the pocket, and he makes plays.
Sounds like you just like Joe Burrow more than Josh Allen.
Well, listen, that is true, but I also was skeptical of Burrow coming out of LSU. I didn't see why he was the number 1 pick of the draft. I understood he had this one unbelievable season, so it's not like I've always liked him, but he's proven it. The guy has a 18-point second-half comeback in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. He had a fourth-quarter comeback yesterday. He's been excellent. And that team with Chase and those guys is scary, especially if you can't get to the quarterback. So it's not about anything other than I give them the respect that they have earned. Now to the MVP conversation. They have a brutal, they being the Bengals, schedule the rest of the way. But now that Lamar is hurt and the AFC North is open, if the Chiefs stumble, of course Burrow should be in the MVP conversation. Right now, he's not there. I shouldn't say he's not there. He's in the conversation. Right now, he's not the MVP. Right now, the MVP is still Mahomes. And the Vegas odds makers agree with me barely on that. They have him a slight favorite over Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was excellent yesterday. We can talk more about that in a moment. But Burrow absolutely can get there. With all that said, here is my proclamation and my guarantee that I am going to make. And this is going to be the big thing I do on television today. So let's not put this up on social media until after the TV show, if we could. The Chiefs are not losing again this year. And the Chiefs are still going to be the 1 seed. So everyone's, Buffalo right now is the 1 seed. Let me make something very clear about what the Chiefs have the rest of the way. They were on the longest winning streak in the NFL. That is now snapped, obviously, and credit to the Bengals for doing it. But the Chiefs, the rest of the way, have the Broncos, Texans, Seahawks at home, Broncos, all of a sudden frisky Raiders final week of the year. They haven't lost to the Broncos since before Mahomes was the quarterback. They don't lose to the Raiders. Seattle, I give them credit, they're not coming into Arrowhead and winning. So the Chiefs are going to finish this season 14-3. What does that mean? That means the Buffalo Bills must go undefeated the rest of the way to be the 1 seed. Cincinnati already has 4 losses. So Cincinnati's got the tiebreaker on Kansas City, but the Chiefs would have to lose again, and Cincinnati would have to go undefeated. The Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Bears, Bengals, Patriots. 3 divisional games, and a game at Cincinnati, and a game at Chicago, which again, Chicago can't win games, but there's an unbelievable stat from our friend Danny Parkins. Justin Fields has more 50-yard touchdown runs than any quarterback in NFL history. Already. He's got 3 of them this season. That's the most of any quarterback in NFL history. Also, we have some breaking news that I find really interesting. The Panthers are, this from Ian Rappaport moments ago. The Panthers are releasing Baker Mayfield. He'll hit waivers when it's finalized later today. That oddly fits very well into our next discussion. And our poll question, who's the best team in the AFC? 45% say the Chiefs, 31% say the Bengals, 22% say the Bills. But DeMonze, what team all of a sudden might need a quarterback? Go right ahead.
The 49ers. They did make a statement against Tua and the Dolphins, but
Yeah.
Jimmy G is likely done for this season with a broken foot.
Brutal.
He's probably going to need surgery.
Yeah.
This means San Francisco has lost two starting quarterbacks this season. However, 2022 Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy looked great in relief. Meanwhile, Tua aggravated a lingering ankle injury as he struggled against the San Francisco defensive line.
Yep.
What happens to San Francisco and Miami from here? Should San Francisco get Fitzpatrick or Drew Brees? But
Or
you're
Baker
saying
Mayfield. Well, listen, Drew Brees, no.
I thought he was done.
He is done. Yeah. And Fitzpatrick, no. Look, Brock Purdy yesterday played really well.
Right.
And the guy was a good college player. Now, he was the final pick of his draft. He was Mr. Irrelevant is what they always call the guy who was picked last in his draft. So I will give him the opportunity to show he can do something. The odds are he's going to be very limited. The Niners are so good everywhere else, though, that you've got to consider them I still consider them strong contenders in the NFC. The question is, can they have a quarterback not who's going to make a ton of plays, but isn't going to make a lot of mistakes? The Baker thing is interesting. They just signed off the Broncos practice squad Josh Johnson. This is his 14th different stop in the NFL. He's been, now some of the teams, he's been on the Niners 3 times, but he's been changed teams 14 times in the league. They're on their 3rd string quarterback. Does Kyle Shanahan? Now, the way waivers work is you claim him, you claim his contract, but it's reverse order. It's the same order as the draft order. So, like, if the Texans were to want Baker Mayfield, they would get him. They would claim him. Do you understand what I mean? Like, so if a guy gets cut at this point in the career,
teams have to pass up on him in order for San Francisco.
Exactly right. So the Eagles would have the last waiver priority because they have the best record. The Texans have the best, and the Niners have pretty damn good record. So I don't have in front of me, but 25 teams would have to pass on something like that. But I don't think that now the Texans are an interesting one because they don't have a quarterback, but do they even want to be in the Baker Mayfield business? I don't know the answer to that. The Niners are in a very tricky spot. I would put a claim in on Baker if I were them. If nothing else, then to be the backup and see what Purdy does. The Niners, though, that defense is so god-dog good. That defense is, they gave up a 75-yard touchdown first play of the game and then just shut the Dolphins down. Even though Tyreek still got off.
Right.
And then we get to the Tua stuff.
I know you can't wait to jump on this one.
Well, everybody was very, very quick to demand that Tua get apologies from everyone that doubted him. I want to see how the remainder of the year goes. Weather's about to get colder. That'll be interesting. Schedule's not going to get very soft for them. That'll be interesting. So Miami, if we want to go over what they have the rest of the way as they sit at 8-5, they are at the Chargers on Sunday Night Football next weekend. The Chargers can't get out of their own damn way. They're still a dangerous team. They are then at the Bills. They are then home for the Packers. They are then at the Patriots and home for the Jets. So the easiest game the rest of the way is home for the Packers for Miami. The Packers, all of a sudden, by the way, Christian Watson, that kid's got 8 touchdowns the last 4 games. There are some obvious limitations that Tua has that, to me, showed up glaringly yesterday. Now, to be fair, Miami was without both of their starting tackles. You're playing a ferocious defense. I believe the best defense in football in San Francisco. And that's why San Francisco, almost no matter who the quarterback is, you still have to consider dangerous. They have a top 3 running back. They have all-pro, first-team all-pro running back, wide receiver, tight end, left tackle, and the best defense in football. And a great coach, I feel. So the question is, how big of a drop is it from Jimmy G to Brock Purdy? But this, by the way, Brock Purdy playing well for them would be such a blow for the quarterback wins dopes. The folks are like, wins are a quarterback stat. That's how they're all that foolishness that has become, and I shouldn't say dopes because some of my favorite people in the media believe this, most notably my co-host Chris Broussard. But they're obviously wrong about that. And I'm very curious to see what the Niners look like with just a guy playing quarterback.
Just a guy.
Yeah, with Brock Purdy. He was their third stringer to start the year. He was the 262nd pick or whatever it was, 252nd pick of his draft. And Miami, on the other hand, this is the time where things could go south for them. It absolutely, they 100%. What do you think the line is?
Bad for these guys, man.
For who? Tell me. Why?
For Miami, it's just like everybody's saying, oh, Tua's got limitations. He's got limitations. And he's been playing well for a while now. And then, like, when it starts to come, they're like, oh, yep, I told you.
But yeah.
It's just like, obvious.
Listen, that's fair.
You're eventually going to have a bad game.
That's totally fair. It is totally fair to say that's the first game all year he has played the whole way through and they've lost, right? So that is a fair critique. And that I am basing this analysis on my prior beliefs on him. But those prior beliefs on him, I feel very strongly about. And I do think that if you're Miami and you caught people off guard early in the year, okay?
Right.
You beat the Patriots, whose offense you scored 7 points. You have that unbelievable game against the Ravens, where you're thoroughly outplayed for 3 quarters and then a perfect fourth quarter. You then have that very weird game against the Bills, where the Bills double you up in yardage, but Josh Allen keeps screwing up the clock and goal line. Okay. Since then, this is what they have done. They lost to the Bengals. They lost to the Jets. They lost to the Vikings. They beat those were the games without Tua.
Yeah, okay.
Those are the games without Tua. So then Tua's back. Here are their wins. They beat the Steelers 16-10. They beat the Lions. They beat the Bears. They beat the Browns. They beat the Texans. So now, with a full season's worth of tape of what you're doing on offense, you play real teams again.
I see the pattern.
And one of those real teams just kicked your teeth in. And so I'm interested to watch where this goes for Miami moving forward. Just like the team right now that, and I don't mean to step on the rest of the show, I'll just do this quickly. If I were a fan of them, I would be up at night, just like, you've got to be kidding me about so many of our losses. The Raiders, who are sitting at 5-7 and have to feel like if we had one of those games we gave away, the Cardinals game, which they flatly gave away, the Chiefs game, which they had multiple chances to win and they didn't, if they had the Jags game that they gave away, if they had won one of those games and they were 6-6, right now they got to feel like they have to run the table. Now, as far as running the table goes, they're not going to run the table, but they have the Rams on Thursday. They then have the Patriots at home the next Sunday night, then the Steelers. The Raiders could, before they play the Niners and the Chiefs at the end of the year. That's brutal. The Raiders, I think, are going to finish game or two out and feel like, God dog it. We should have been right there. All right, next.
Is there a poll?
No poll for this one.
All right, both NFC East powerhouses made statements this weekend. The one-loss Eagles blew out the Titans. Dallas embarrassed the Colts on Sunday Night Football. There are 3 clear top teams in the NFC: Philly, Dallas, and Minnesota. How do you rank them? Is Dallas better than Philly, regardless of the record?
Okay, there are not 3 clearly. There are 3 clear best teams in the NFC, but Minnesota's not one of them. Give me a break on Minnesota. I'm very happy for you with your 10-2 record. You're a very good team. I shouldn't say you're not a good team. You're not a very good team. You got incredibly lucky to beat the Jets yesterday. You're 9-0 in one-score games. Give me a break, including Minnesota then. Philly, Dallas, and the Niners are the 3 best teams in the NFC, hands down. All right, so here's the thing on Philly. And I know Eagles fans hate me, and that's fine, and I'll deal with it. And Jalen Hurts, they ran for 350 yards the week before this. This week, Jalen throws for damn near 400. Credit where it's due. An A.J. Brown revenge game against the team. He used to be on the Titans. They didn't want to pay him. They traded him, and he dominated that football game. The way right now to go after Philadelphia is vertical passing game. And Tennessee can't do it. Tennessee, especially once Treylon Burks went out. Did you see the Treylon Burks touchdown highlight? It's one of the best plays of the year. He got knocked unconscious on the catch and held on to it while unconscious.
Yeah, I do think I saw that. I saw that live.
That was it was a scary play.
Right.
But once he went out for the game, Tennessee can't beat you vertically, and Philadelphia seized on it. Dallas, on the other hand, it's one of the most bizarre games ever because Indy is going for 2 to tie that football game late in the third quarter, and they end up losing by 1,000. Dallas outscores them 33-0 in the fourth quarter because Indy can't stop turning the ball over. To me, Dallas was the more impressive performance yesterday, even though Tennessee is a better team than Indy. Because Dallas's ability to be explosive is, to me, really frightening if you're anyone else in the NFC because you know how good that defense is. And so Philadelphia deserves credit for everything they've done this year. I got to see what happens with the Niners at the quarterback position. And the Cowboys, the problem is I don't trust the head coach. Right now, if you're in the NFC, if you're Seattle right now, you got to feel like we could win the conference.
Right.
And I know the Philadelphia fans are yelling at their computer screens or into their phones saying, what more do we have to do to show you we are that dominant team? And I have been consistent on this, and you can say it's unfair, but having that awful of a showing in the postseason last year, when it's the only playoff experience your coach or your quarterback have ever had, I cannot get that out of my mind until I see you play in a playoff game again. There is literally nothing you could do this, for me, nothing you could do this regular season to where I don't have a yeah but about that game. You then add to it that I thought Philly, as dominant as they were early in the year, that Philly later in the year was not playing their best football, as evidenced by the fact that when they played the Texans a few weeks ago or a month ago, I thought that was a mediocre performance. They lose to the Commanders. They steal one against the Colts. They are in a dogfight against a Packers team that I don't think is any good, and then they dominate the Titans. They get back on track against the Titans yesterday, but to me, that game shifted entirely when Treylon Burks went out, and now that was early in the game. So am I judging Philly by an unfair standard? Maybe, but my obligation to the audience is to be honest, and my honest opinion is it would not shock me if Philadelphia ends up the 1 seed, gets the bye, and then loses its first playoff game. Next.
Is Dallas
better than Philly is the poll question?
70, what does it say? 72, 21% say yes, 79 say no.
So 79% of the audience thinks Philly's better than Dallas. We'll get to see them play again here soon. Go ahead.
All right, Lamar Jackson went down early yesterday with a knee injury and did not return and screwed a couple of my parlays. But,
yeah.
Guys hurt. Luckily for Baltimore, they were playing the Broncos and won by a point. But the Bengals are clearly the class of this division. Is this injury more devastating for Baltimore or Lamar considering his contract situation?
Well, I think it's more devastating for Baltimore. Remember, Baltimore last year was, what were they, 8-3? And then Lamar got hurt and they missed the playoffs. They're now 8-4. And Baltimore, now what they have going for them this year is Baltimore's schedule the rest of the way. Steelers, Browns, Falcons, Steelers, Bengals. So now the Steelers won a few in a row, and the Browns, we'll see what they look like when Deshaun gets the rust off. But that was a very important win for them yesterday. And they are the only team in the league yesterday I think they could have beaten is the Broncos. And so Lamar's going to get some version of a good contract no matter what.
Yeah.
But Lamar, since the first month of the season, has not played great, and now this is the second straight year he's gotten hurt. Those are...
I think it's pretty devastating for Lamar.
Well, until you realize that if the Ravens were... So, to me, his worst case scenario is they just franchise tag him for $40 million. Because if you don't think there's a team out there, and I've said it, used them before, I'll use them again, like the Jets, that would give Lamar $45 million a year guaranteed, of course they would. So his downside is relatively limited because if he was amazing this year, they might franchise tag him anyway because they don't want to give him a fully guaranteed deal. If he's bad and hurt, they're still going to franchise tag him. Baltimore, on the other hand, Cincinnati's win over the Chiefs is really damaging for Baltimore. And the fact that Cincinnati gets to play Baltimore again later in the year. Baltimore needs to find a way to win these games without Lamar. Luckily, the schedule's soft, but the Steelers are a live team right now, and you got to deal with them. You can't imagine they're going to sweep the Steelers. So it's not quite as easy as maybe we thought the schedule was going to be a few weeks ago. To me, the bigger story, not the bigger story, but an equally big story from that game is, it is impossible how bad the Broncos are. I was skeptical of them. I was the biggest Broncos skeptic, I think, in the national media.
9 points.
I said I thought they were going to be 8-9, and people killed me for it. They would, if they win out, they would have to win out to be 8-9. They have the Chiefs twice the rest of the way. The Broncos, this is what they have done as far as points scored this year. And keep in mind, there are some games where the defense scored. 16, 16, 11, 23, 9, 16, 9, 21, 10, 16, 10, 9. How is that possible?
Were they up 6-0 or was it 3-0 was their only... They were up 6-0 at some point yesterday, I feel like.
But they were up 9-3 before Tyler Huntley drove them all the way down the field for a touchdown. How maddening must it be to be on this Broncos defense?
Yeah.
Russ has 8 touchdowns this year. 8. I'm sorry to do this in real time, but it's just I gotta find other quarterbacks that are similar when it comes to passing touchdowns. I'm sorting by touchdowns right now. Okay, here are guys with Baker has 6. He's been benched. Taylor Heineke has 9. He wasn't the starter the first 6 weeks. Carson Wentz has 10. So, Washington, which switched quarterbacks this year,
both
of their quarterbacks have more touchdown passes than Russ. Davis Mills has 11. He's been benched. Jacoby Brissett has 12. Matt Ryan has been benched and has come back. He has 13. Russ has 8. He's got 8. Jameis Winston hasn't played in 2 months. He's got 4. I thought Russell Wilson was overrated coming into the year. I thought the Broncos made a big mistake. I never in a million years thought it was going to look like this, where they are the worst offense in football. His passer rating's 83. That is 29th in the league, ahead of only Davis Mills, Kenny Pickett, and Zach Wilson and Baker Mayfield. So a rookie and 3 guys who have been benched.
Right.
That's it. It's unbelievable. All right, take a quick break, come back, continue to talk week 12 whatever week this was, week 14 in the NFL, and talk a little World Cup. That's next. What's Right? Welcome back in. What's Right with Nick Wright, episode 103. Oh, during the show, breaking news that Baker Mayfield is getting released, and I do wonder if the Niners are going to try to claim him. If you're Baker, you've got to do everything you can in your power to make sure nobody. You find out if the Niners have interest.
Right.
And if they do, try to poison the water so nobody else picks you. So and let me just, before we get to our FIFA forecast, I said I didn't have the full list in front of me as far as who would have waiver priority, but I can obviously get it in front of me. So if we do the league standings, so Houston has a first priority. They might claim you. So Chicago definitely wouldn't. The Rams wouldn't. Denver wouldn't. Jacksonville wouldn't. New Orleans, maybe, because they don't have a quarterback at the present or future, and they don't have their pick. Arizona, no. Indy, no. Green Bay, of course not. Atlanta,
Indy, no.
No, but they're rolling with Matt Ryan. That's who Jeff Saturday wants. Atlanta drafted a guy who they haven't played yet, so no. Pittsburgh, no. Cleveland, that would be hilarious, but no. The Raiders, no. Lions, no. Tampa, no. Chargers, Patriots, maybe. Probably not, because they have Zappy. I was just thinking about teams that might want him as a backup. Washington, no. Seattle and the Jets, no. Tennessee, Giants, Miami. Now we're up to San Francisco. So you really need to make it clear to the people in Houston that you will be a culture killer.
Yeah.
You have
Not
your
gonna be a
agent.
good time.
Dude, just Baker right now should tweet out how much Texas barbecue sucks and how much he enjoyed kicking the Longhorns' ass when he was at Oklahoma and do everything he can to poison the water about the Texans potentially claiming
Get
him.
away from the Texans at the very least.
Now, by the way, I don't know that the Niners would claim him,
Right.
but I think it would be, if they are claiming Josh Johnson off dudes' practice squads, Kyle Shanahan, I would imagine, would want to see what he could do with Baker.
Right.
So,
He's got other stuff around him.
Of course.
Instead of
I mean, it would
the
be,
Panthers.
what an unbelievable story it would be if Baker ends up falling ass backwards into being the Niners quarterback.
Yeah.
In that situation. It also would be such a wonderful litmus test of what it takes to be successful in the league if Baker had just been terrible, his last year in Cleveland, awful with Carolina, but then gets to the Niners and looks good again. It also should be noted that, is there a connection between Stefanski and Shanahan? Maybe not. I was going to say, was Stefanski part of that tree? But I'm not certain. Stefanski was the coach in Cleveland, obviously. All right, let's get to soccer. Go ahead.
All right, you did all you could at the Aria Sportsbook, but it wasn't enough for the U.S. to beat the Dutch.
All right, that was funny, by the way, real quick. I was at the Aria Sportsbook. U.S. down 2-0. They then get a goal, make it 2-1. Now all of a sudden it's a game, and we can put the tweet up there. This guy, you're going to see me in a moment pounding the desk right there in the white shirt. I'm pounding the desk. He wasn't like videoing me. He was videoing the sports book and then caught me on there. That was every day in Vegas. I got up at 6:45 in the morning, went downstairs, got a cup of coffee, and watched the World Cup. But the U.S., of course, lost. Go ahead.
Any last words for the USA, and are you still sticking with Brazil to win it all?
All right, I'm still sticking with Brazil. Neymar's supposed to come back. Neymar also flew his barber or hairstylist into Qatar to give him a new hairdo for today's game. That's exciting. Also, as we're on the air right now, Croatia is oh no, they just tied it up. Literally a moment ago, Croatia tied it up against Japan. This is the first World Cup game I'm missing because I'm doing this show live right now. So Japan took a 1-0 lead right before halftime. Croatia tied it up. Right now, France, Spain, and Brazil look like the classes of the tournament. And what Mbappe did yesterday was so phenomenal to watch. I know everyone says he's the best player in the world. He clearly is the best player in the world, and he's just brilliant. I am sticking with Brazil. Obviously, they need Neymar to be healthy, and Argentina is still lingering, clearly. And, they also have advanced already to the quarters. And so we have a great quarterfinal matchup already on deck with the Netherlands against Argentina. Netherlands, which is on the longest unbeaten streak of any team in international soccer. We also have a really good quarterfinal matchup locked up in England and France. I thought England could lose to Senegal. Instead, they crushed them. Here's the last words on the U.S. You can't call this tournament a disappointment because they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Finish second in the group, make the quarters, lose to Netherlands. That's clear. But you can't call it a rousing success either, because I would argue they didn't play a single great game the whole tournament.
Right.
Their best game was a game they scored 0 goals against England, the 0-0 draw. It was nice that they beat Iran, but they almost gave it away at the end. Against the Netherlands, they had no business. That game should have been 1-1 or 2-1 U.S. at the half. Instead, it was 2-0 Netherlands. And I understand they were one of the youngest teams in the whole tournament. The next World Cup is in the United States. I get all of that. And there are reasons to be optimistic. But if you're giving them a grade for this World Cup, anything more than a B is being far too generous. Okay. And it is clear. I didn't want to say argued. I disagreed with Rick Bucher a bit on this when Rick was like, anyone that's calling them an elite team doesn't know what they're talking about. And I just said to him, well, you got to define elite. Are they one of the 10 best teams in the world? Clearly not. Are they one of the 20 best? I would argue clearly yes. Okay. Closer to 20 than to 10. But that jump between where they are right now to actually competing in a World Cup is such a massive jump that even with the youth on the team and these guys getting experience, it is impossible to see them making that type of jump unless they all of a sudden get a transcendent talent or two that right now does not appear to be in the pipeline or on the U.S. roster. So it wasn't a disappointing World Cup, but it obviously was. It felt to me like they left some meat on the bone. All right, next, let's play a game.
We're playing a game, right or wrong. First one, we've got maybe I've been watching a little bit too much soccer, but the Commanders-Giants game, tie, actually ended up being good for both teams, right or wrong. The Giants saved their seasons. The Giants tie saved their season.
Well, I don't want to say it saved their season, but I do agree with you that I don't think a tie was a terrible result for either of these teams because of how the playoff situation is shaking out. So now they're in a situation right now, we know in the NFC there's going to be 2 playoff spots for 3 teams. Giants, Seahawks, and Washington. They all have 7 wins right now. Giants are 7-4-1, Washington 7-5-1, and Seattle is 7-5. And they all kept pace, if you will, both of them with the tie with Seattle to a degree. Okay. To where now, if either of them finish with the same number of wins as Seattle, they will go to the playoffs over Seattle because Seattle would be, say, 10-7, and they would be 10-6-1. And so the tie is helpful there. So the question is, how many wins do we think Seattle has left in them? So Seattle is hosting the Panthers next week. That should be a win. They then host the Niners. That should be a loss. The Niners, though, have the big question at quarterback. They're then at the Chiefs. That should be a loss. They then host the Jets. That's a coin flip game, but the Jets going all the way across country. Call that a win. And in the final week of the year, they host the Rams. So I do believe Seattle is going to get to 10 wins. Okay. So then the question is for the Giants, do they have 3 more wins in them? Their games are hosting the Eagles, at the Commanders, at the Vikings, hosting the Colts, and then at the Eagles in a game that the Eagles might have everything locked up. So that's key for them, right? If the Eagles Because if the Eagles beat Dallas, then they will essentially lock everything up because they'll have the full tiebreaker over Dallas. Dallas would have 4 losses. They already have the head-to-head with Minnesota. So even if Minnesota and them finish with the same record, Philly would get the 1 seed.
Right.
So can the Giants get to 10 wins? The fact of the matter is this, and then Washington, what do they have left? Let me look at the same thing. They have a bye week, then because they only have 4 games to get the 10 wins we're talking about. They host the Giants, then they're at the Niners, host the Browns, and then host Dallas. That's brutal. I think that playoff spot is going to come down to that Giants-Commanders game. They both have the tie. That'll determine the tiebreaker. So save their season. Even if they had lost, they probably would still have to go beat Washington. But now there is the slim chance if Seattle, because of the tie, if Seattle slips up, that both Washington and the Giants could make the postseason. So save their season, I'm going to say wrong, but I think the tie was not a terrible result for them. Next.
All right, A.J. Brown had a monster revenge game against Tennessee. Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams put up huge games as well. Their former teams definitely missed it. Even you got to admit that you missed Tyreek Hill after you saw MVS drop that touchdown pass.
Yeah, MVS then did make a couple good catches, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, right or wrong, never trade star wide receivers.
Well, I'm going to say wrong because how did the Vikings get Justin Jefferson? They traded Stephon Diggs, and with the pick they got for him, they used it on Justin Jefferson. What I would say is, unless you have Patrick Mahomes, do not trade away star receivers unless you have someone ready to immediately replace them. So the Packers didn't have someone to replace Devontae. Now Christian Watson's playing well the last month, 8 touchdowns last month. I mentioned the second time on the show, I heard my buddy Danny Parkins speculating whether or not or maybe even Andrew Filipponi. I was listening to their podcast, First and Pod, which is a really good NFL podcast, about whether or not Christian Watson could win Offensive Rookie of the Year. It seemed unfathomable a month ago, but 8 touchdowns. So I guess it's on the board. It is teams that trade away their number 1 receiver, unless you have Mahomes where it doesn't seem to matter. The Chiefs still the highest scoring team in the league. Yeah, it seems like a problem for you. And so I'm not gonna say it's right. I'm gonna say it's right that you never trade them away without someone ready to step in right there. And the Vikings got a little lucky. I mean, they traded Diggs before they knew who they were going to be able to draft with that pick and all of that, but it worked out brilliantly for him. Justin Jefferson's one of the 2 best receivers in the whole league. Next.
All right, Mike White and the Jets barely lost to the 10-2 Vikings on the road. Still, this team looks pretty legit. Right or wrong, Mike White is the Jets' future.
Oh, that's wrong. It's not the Jets'
Not
future.
if Baker Mayfield wants anything to do with it.
No, that's not what I think. Listen, I think they probably signed Jimmy, even though Jimmy's coming off another injury and a broken foot. Mike White is a good story, and he's good because he's not Zach Wilson,
Right.
was such a abject disaster, and now you're actually getting your weapons involved, and the Jets should have won that game, but he's not their future. I'm not going to write him off as having no chance of being their future, but I'd say it's 90-10 against Mike. If Mike White's your week 1 starter next year, either he goes on a really spectacular run these last 5 weeks, or something disastrous has happened this offseason where you didn't figure it out. Next.
All right, Aaron Rodgers pulled out a close win against Chicago, then rubbed it into the Bears fans by saying, Soldier Field has always been a second home to me. Right or wrong, Aaron Rodgers is back.
Wrong. Everybody stop. They were very lucky to win this game, and I think it is bad for the Packers that they won. Had they lost, you could no longer continue with this illusion, or delusion maybe I should say, about you potentially making the postseason, and you could play Jordan Love so you could determine whether or not you want to pick up his 5th-year option in the offseason. Instead, they won, and so now they're going to pretend like they have any chance of making the postseason. So the fact of the matter for Green Bay is this. They cap out at 9 wins. If they run the table, they are 9-8. That would lose any tiebreakers with Washington or the Giants if they get to 9 wins. We just talked about those teams getting to 10, right? So we already know that San Francisco, Dallas, Minnesota, and Philly are all getting to 9 or more wins. There's also the NFC South team, right? So Green Bay would have to win the rest of its games and would have to also hope that Seattle falls apart and Washington or the Giants, one of them, only win one game the rest of the way. It's not happening. And so I think Aaron Rodgers played well against a terrible Bears defense. I do not think he's back, and I do not think the Packers have any hope. I think that win was actually bad for them.
Okay.
All right, next.
All right, you bet on the road favorite Jags this week after your betting ban was lifted, and they got blown out 40-14. Right or wrong, the Jags ban must return. Hey, man, I warned you. I said it's the Lions at home, I remember. Just like, you just can't. You never know what the Lions are going to do, man.
The Jags ban has to return. It has to come back.
Like
that was the most Zay Jones just kept dropping passes. Travis Etienne fumbled.
And Jared Goff probably had his best game as a quarterback ever.
Certainly in a long time. They lost 40-14. That game was so disheartening. It was so frustrating to watch. Trevor didn't even play poorly, and they just got annihilated. So, yeah, put the ban back on. That's so disappointing. You know what's not disappointing? That Anthony Davis might be one of the 3 best players in the sport again. We'll answer your questions in the chat, one of which I know is on the Lakers. We'll do that next. What's right? Welcome back in. What's right with Nick Wright? As I'm monitoring Japan-Croatia, which is in the 70th minute, tied at 1 apiece. So we're going to go through this quickly so I can see the end of that match. All right, DeMonte, let's read the questions from the chat.
Batman asks, can LeBron and Anthony Davis both finish this season as a top 5 player in your opinion?
No, I don't think LeBron's top 5 guy anymore. And we just have to, now we can talk more about the Lakers in just a moment. What are you laughing about?
Batman, he watches our show. It's pretty dope.
Oh, yeah, that is cool. So, Giannis, Luka, Steph, KD, Tatum, right now, all have a claim that they are unquestionably top 5. Right? Anthony Davis is trying to push one of them out. And the way he's been playing lately, he would be pushing one of them out. But so let's just say AD's at 6. You know what I mean? AD. So you have Giannis as a clear best player in the world. I believe Luka a clear second best player in the world. You then have 3 guys who have an argument for the third best guy. Steph, KD, and Tatum right now. You then have the next group of guys, which are Jokic, Ja, and Anthony Davis. To me, the way AD is playing right now, those are the guys 6 through 8. I'm doing this off the top of my head. LeBron is in that very next tier, 9 through 12, somewhere in there. So LeBron is, listen, he almost, once a week, he has the best game anyone's ever had other than himself for, at this point in his career. But he's not, he's in year 20.
Right.
He just passed Magic in assists, and he's still doing these types of things. But what's interesting for the Lakers is this. If AD keeps this up, they are not a team that can be discounted. If LeBron is your second best guy, you're in amazing shape. And credit where it's due. Russ has played really well since he started coming off the bench. He's not turning the ball over. He's being smarter. And when it comes to LeBron, I told you guys, everyone's like, LeBron, worst three-point shooter in the league, which he was until he got hurt and missed that little bit of time. And I told you guys, He's going to have a stretch where he shoots 45% from three. I was wrong. It's a stretch where he shoots 50%.
60,
yeah. And so now he's up to 34% for the season, which is right around his career average. He's going to finish the year around 35% from three. And it's going to be, despite the fact he'll never really shoot 35% from three. He'll have some 1 for 8 games and some 5 for 7 games, and it'll even out in that regard. But the Lakers are interesting again. And that game against the Bucks was their best win since Game 3 of the first round, the year of their title defense against Phoenix. The game that the next game Anthony Davis got hurt and the whole thing went to hell. All right, next.
All right, Jackson says, I need to understand the double standard with teams like Miami and Buffalo. Tua had one bad game in 2 months and everyone bounces. Josh Allen has several in the last month and no one cares.
All right, first of all, I care about the Josh Allen thing, but it is preconceived notions cause analytical bias, but sometimes they're for good reason. We cannot act as if what you have been up to this point in your career should not factor into whether or not we believe stretches of excellent play or stretches of awful play are concerning or cause for optimism or neither. So Mahomes last year had a month where he played poorly.
Right.
I was never concerned about him because he had prior to that 3.5 years of quarterback play at the highest level we've ever seen. Tua had 2 years as a bad starting quarterback. Then he had this stretch start the year. It's going to need to be more than 8 games for at least for me, to say, okay, he's one of those guys. He's a great player. Josh Allen, we have seen what his highs are. So we know Josh Allen can be the quarterback of one of the best teams in football, so you give him more benefit of the doubt. Now, what I also think with Josh Allen is we have seen throughout his entire career high highs and low lows. And I'm one of the only people in the media that seems to care about the low lows, but they've been there. So I do think body of work really matters.
Right.
And to me, that's not really a double standard. Or it is a double standard, but it is a fair double standard. It is have you earned the benefit of the doubt yet or not? Next.
All right, King of Fedoras asks, will Brandon Staley be fired after this season? No reason a defensive-minded head coach should have one of the worst defenses in the NFL back-to-back years.
Okay. If they miss the playoffs, I do wonder if they'll fire him. Now, the Chargers' ownership's pretty cheap by nature, doesn't like to move on from coaches early. I think probably he gets another year, and they've been so injured. But that loss against the Raiders was unacceptable by any measure. Unacceptable. And it's going to be, if the Jets or the Patriots make the playoffs and the Chargers don't, and by the way, that's what would happen. If the Chargers miss, it will be because the Jets or the Patriots take their spot, or I guess the Raiders, win out and do it. That is going to be, I've liked Staley previously. He obviously hasn't done a great job this year. And that team, if you're Brandon Staley, what you're worried about is that Chargers ownership is going to, for the first time maybe ever, not be cheap and go out and hire Sean Payton. Because if I'm Sean Payton coaching Justin Herbert, and that's what would concern me as a Chiefs fan, Justin Herbert getting Sean Payton as a head coach. Mm-hmm. Next.
Tony asks, are the Raiders better than the Chargers despite their record?
No, I don't think they're better. I think they have similar issues. I do think the Raiders, though, when it's clicking, look like a good team. Josh Jacobs looks like the best running back in football. Devontae's doing great things. I don't trust their coach, and I don't really trust their quarterback, and I don't love their defense. But at times, they can look really good. Next.
All right, Marcos asks, Nick, do you think one day soccer will be as big in the U.S. as the other great American sports? How much of a fan number increase do you expect until 2026?
I don't know about in the short term. On a long enough horizon, do I think soccer could become the third most popular sport? Could it pass baseball? I think it could. I think what it is going to take is a LeBron-level star, meaning one of the very best players in the world, maybe not LeBron level, KD level, one of the best players ever, even if he doesn't have to be the best ever, being an American. What it is going to take is an American with charisma and personality starring for one of the best clubs in Europe. That the way to make soccer popular here is not necessarily the MLS, because Americans like to watch the best of the best.
Right.
But if an American can go over to the Premier League and kick ass, that player does not yet exist. It's not going to be Pulisic, who's great for an American, but is not one of the 20 best players in the world. It is going to take someone that is as good as, maybe don't have to be Mbappe, but as good as Benzema is right now as an American. It's going to be hard to do. Next.
All right, Alan says, why does DeMonte have pants on under his pants?
Well, why don't you answer that?
It's cold outside, dude. These are long johns. They're like, or you can call them thermals. I learned that thermals are like wind patterns in the air that like certain birds follow.
Okay.
Like when some people go parasailing, they use like these vultures or something to find the thermals, so they'll be able to glide smoothly.
What does that have to do with your pants?
They're called thermals.
But I understand that, but so it's just the same
It's
name?
the same name,
I
same
got
word. But it's also got something to do with the weather, so they're kind of related.
Oh, no, I got you. Listen, DeMonte's done hard work in his life. Used to build fences, was briefly, well, it doesn't matter. Had other work that was outdoors, and will not dress in a way to where he's uncomfortable, no matter what people think of the fashion. Did you see the picture someone texted us of Mahomes?
Yeah.
Mahomes wearing the shorts and the hoodie, the DeMonte special. I mean, listen, you and Mahomes are around the same age. It might be a Gen Z thing.
It's not a Gen Z thing, man.
What?
You gotta stop saying that.
What do you mean?
It's not a Gen Z. People wear hoodies and shorts.
I think Gen Z guys do. I don't think it's a bad thing.
I think I just saw Petrushka's husband, Nick, outside with hoodies and a hoodie on and shorts.
Okay,
And
well,
Dave
I'm going to have
asked,
to check that real quick.
why
And
not?
also, the audience doesn't know. Petrushka and Nick own the ice cream shop right next door to where we do this podcast from, Sugar Hill Creamery, which is the best ice cream shop in the world. But go ahead.
Gabe just asked to follow up and said, why not just get pants that cover up your legs? Well, because I've worn the one pair of pants that I have that cover up my legs for the last 3 episodes of the podcast. So I wanted to switch it up a little bit.
DeMonte doesn't have an expansive wardrobe.
Yeah.
And he recently bought a piece of clothing on the internet.
Yeah.
And it has not yet been delivered. It was 6 weeks ago.
I ordered.
And he's so angry about it, he refuses to spend money on any other clothes. Is that about right?
I mean, yeah, I do think that I'm going to request my money. At this point, it's, on the top of their website, it says basic shipping takes 5 to 7 business days.
Yeah.
I ordered it on the 9th of November.
Yeah, I don't think you're getting it, buddy. I think they screwed you.
I'm getting something.
You're okay. All right. So, Gabe Goodwin says we'll send some pants along with the big hat. Yeah, do that. And by the way, Joy Taylor tried to bite our style, saying she wants one of those big hats. So it's a race to see if the Blue Duck Production Company or Fox Sports Production can get a big hat in our hand before Joy gets hers. Because if Joy gets it before us, everyone's going to say we're biting Joy's style, and that's unacceptable. Today was a great show. You did great. It's wonderful to be back. I'm going to watch the end of Japan-Croatia. Also, by the way, real quick, let me go ahead and check. We are still on the hunt for 100,000 YouTube subscribers. We are sitting presently at
Under 88,000.
Yep. So let's get to 90,000 this week and then have a big December push to try to get to 100,000. So DeMonze can get the $1,000 bonus. On the flip side, maybe we come just short, so I don't have to give him that $1,000 bonus because I don't know if you heard the beginning of the show, but this was not a great weekend for me from the gambling perspective. All right, everybody, wonderful show. Talk to you guys on Thursday for our next show. What's right? Hey, it's Nick Wright. Thank you so much for watching. Please do us a favor. Click subscribe. It helps my ego, and DeMonze's got a financial bonus writing on a number of YouTube subscribers, so help him out. And also, click the bell. I don't know what the bell does, but they tell me to tell you to click the bell. And your audio listeners, people that have commutes, drives, whatever it is, subscribe to the podcast as well, wherever you get the podcast. Same show, just in your ears instead of through your eyes. All that, check it out. Appreciate y'all.